to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a reading wrap-up of all the books that I read in October. I read a total of 15 books this month, and all of them were spooky. So I'm just going to be discussing them and telling you what I rated them and see if it's something that you're interested in. My first book is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This book focuses on a girl who becomes possessed, theoretically, and it's up to her best friend to help save her soul. And so it's a really good book. There's a lot of humorous moments as well as downright creepy moments. You get to see the power of female friendship as well as the power of what this friendship can do for a friend in need, I guess you can say. So I gave this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it and highly recommend it for anybody looking of where to start with Grady Hendrix. So the next book I read was Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. And so this book is a fever dream, as it says. I gave it 4 stars. It's weird, but I liked it. It's told from the point of view of a woman laying in a hospital bed, and there's somebody at her bedside that's not related to her, but they're talking to her. And so you start out with all like these disembodied voices, and she's recalling the story of how she came to be in the hospital bed. And I mean, it's really sad book. Once you actually get down to like the deeper meaning, it is really sad. I think it's based off of, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's based off like the poisoning of water in Argentina, I think is what I read. So read this book if you want to be confused but like it, I guess you could say. Yeah, I mean, I highly recommend it. It's just weird. The next book I read was The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This book is like a modern day Carrie retelling, heavy on like racism. And so we have a girl who has been forced to disguise that she is black. And one day she gets stuck outside when it rains and her hair poofs up. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know she was black. And so you have this whole storyline that follows this and how she gets bullied a lot. But just like in the regular Carrie, she has powers. And so she starts to tap into these powers and learns, hey, I can fight back. And so she gets invited to the prom by the most popular boy in school. It was his girlfriend's idea, but he actually starts to fall in love with her as well. And then prom happens, and I don't want to give too much away, but if you've seen Carrie, you know what happens at prom. So I really enjoyed this book. It's really great on audio because they have like a little podcast segment in it. So it's like a full cast audio book. So I highly recommend this on audio. But I gave it 5 stars. I mean, it was really enjoyable. And while yes, it does follow pretty much the same storyline as Carrie, I liked it. I mean, it was really, really good. The next book I read was also on audiobook, and it was Come Closer by Sarah Gran. This book follows a woman who is just going about her regular life, and she starts to notice weird things happening. Her and her husband start hearing like a weird scratching in the apartment. The dog that she typically walks home with starts to act funny around her, and all these little subtle changes. And one day she orders a book off Amazon, but it comes in as an entirely different book, and it is a book about being possessed. It's like a checklist for possession. And every time she comes back to this checklist, she ranks higher. And so it's basically a book about a slow possession and how we see this woman changing. And whew, the ending was brutal, okay? Like, it was a really, really good book. And that ending was super brutal. It's really quick read. I think it's only like 200 pages or something. So super quick and really enjoyable. I gave this book 5 stars. I still think about it, and I read it like 25 days ago, and it still sticks with me. Next up is Misery by Stephen King. This book is about a writer named Paul Sheldon who has wrote a book series, the Misery series, and he just finished another book. He's driving home, the snowstorm hits, and he crashes his car, and instead of getting sent to a hospital, he is rescued by a woman named Annie Wilkes, who is his #1 fan. Now, Annie tortures poor Paul. She gets him hooked on pain medicine, and then she beats him. She leaves him for days without feeding him, giving him medicine. And this book is just a super tense roller coaster ride. I've listened to it on audiobook, I've read it in ebook, and I've also read it physically this last time. And so this book is just one that sticks with me. I love it so much. I can never not recommend it to people when they ask, where should I start with Stephen King? Start with Misery. It's so good. Anyway, we just follow the story of Paul as he is tortured and brutalized by Annie, and we get to see whether he makes it out or not. I don't want to give it away. You never know with Stephen King. But I gave this book 5 stars. Super enjoyable read. It's not even a long King. It's only like 330 pages, 350 pages. So it's a super quick read for King. So seriously, check out Misery if you have not. The next book I read was The Patient by Jasper DeWitt. This book I actually read on audio. It was super good. It's only like 6 hours, or 4 hours, something like that. It's a super quick read. But it focuses on a doctor who is coming to a mental institution, and there's a patient that they have never been able to treat before. Like they've tried everything, and pretty much everyone around him just goes crazy, kills themselves. I mean, it's pretty bad. But of course, him being a fresh new doctor, he thinks that he can take on this patient. So our doctor begins to dig into the past and finds out all sorts of weird things about this patient, and this one's just a roller coaster. It's a really short story. Again, I think it's only like 200 pages, really fast read, and it's pretty brutal. It's really good. So I gave it 5 stars. Go check it out. It's so good. The next book I read was Pen Pal by Dathan Arbach. And this book is a book about a man reflecting back on his time as a child, and he realizes that there was some creepy things happening in his life that he really didn't realize at the time. So it focuses him in like 2nd, 3rd grade, and they have a pen pal incident where they send out balloons and write a letter and give $1, and that dollar winds up finding its way back to him at a lemonade stand. But every chapter starts out pretty normal. It's like a normal kid summer 80s vibe, and then you see it has a dark turn at the end of each chapter, and you see what actually like is happening. Like there is scenes where the kids are running through the woods and they hear people whispering their name. You hear the click of a camera as pictures are taken. There's a scene where the kid is looking for his cat, and he's under the crawl space of his old house that's now abandoned, and he hears footsteps walking upstairs, and his friend finds a whole wall of Polaroid pictures of them. Like, this book gave me chills. I had to pause a couple times and be like, you can read this. But the funny thing is, I've actually already read this, because this is based off of a Reddit creepypasta that was published in like 2012 or something like that. And I did not know that, and I had read it back then. So when I was reading this, I was like, hey, this is a bit familiar. But I didn't remember everything that I read when I was like 12 or 13 years old. But seriously, this book gave me the chills. It was probably one of the creepiest books I've read this month, so check it out. Next book is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Caw. This book was not it for me, I'm sorry. I think I gave this book, I gave it 2 stars. So it focuses on a group of like 5 friends, and they rented a Japanese haunted house in Japan. But I really did not like any of the characters in this book. They were all like really rude. They were all jerks, and there was really not a redeeming quality about any of them. So they go to this house, and then weird things start happening. I guess one of the main characters always wanted to be married in a haunted house, so they're having like a wedding reception in the house. I don't know. It was a bit confusing at times. Like, there's times where the writing was really flowery, and it kind of took me out of it. The adults talk like they're 5 sometimes. I don't know. I don't want to like hate on a book or anything, but this was just not my cup of tea. But hey, it may be your cup of tea. I mean, I don't judge. You like what you like. This book, unfortunately, was just not for me. Yeah. It's on sale at my Pango bookshop if you want it, though. The next book I read, I actually listened to it on audiobook, was Needful Things by Stephen King. And this is a thick book, okay? I don't even know how long it is because I just listened to it on like 2 times speed. Yeah, it's almost 700 pages. It's thick. But this book focuses on a town, and in the town, a new shop arises, and it is called Needful Things, and it's run by a shop owner named Leland Gaunt. And Leland Gaunt is kind of like almost representative of the devil, almost. So these people go to this shop and they purchase items that they really want or need, but they'll pay a little money and then they have to do like one little thing. And half the time this one little thing is a prank, and it's kind of like they're basically selling their souls to this shop owner. And because things start to spiral, it's like a slow buildup. So like your first half of the book is watching all these little things build up into this huge like crescendo of awfulness. I don't know how else to describe it. Like you have neighbor turn against neighbor. You have the 2 churches, like your Catholic church versus your Baptist church, and they're going to war. I mean, it's brutal. This book got so brutal. I wouldn't say so fast, but like once it hit the fan, it hit the fan. So this book was really, really fun. Like the bad guy, Leland, he is snarky and funny. And yeah, it's so good. So I gave this book 4 stars. It did take a little while to get to the action, but once I was there, I was hooked. So really enjoyed the Stephen King book. Crunch bar break. The book I read was Bunny by Mona Awad. This book is weird. That's about all I can say of it, is it's weird. You have this like clique of girls, and you have this one girl, so she is like an MFA writer, and she's gone to school with these girls for a couple years now, and all of a sudden out of nowhere she gets an invite to join their bunny gang, kind of. I guess you can call it a gang. I don't know, but she gets an invite to go to their house, and there she partakes in a night of weirdness. They act out stories of weird desires and all sorts of stuff. So it is a weird book. I didn't know what was going on half of it. The other half I thought I knew what was going on, but I was probably wrong. So, but I liked it, okay? Like this book was still really good. It's odd, but it's good. Just kind of like Fever Dream. It's odd, but it's good. I guess I like weird horror books, apparently. Oh well, but I gave this book 4 stars. I docked a star just because half the time I didn't know what was going on. This book is also like a fever dream, like literally a fever dream. Yeah, it's basically she gets like initiated into a cult and weird things start happening. So, dark academia, cult. Woo! No, fairy tale. Love with the fairy tale hurts. Next up is another Stephen King book. It was a Stephen King kind of month, and it was Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale is his latest release, and it's about a boy who winds up helping out an old man who has a dog. And he helps out this old man, but unfortunately, eventually the old man passes away. I don't think that's a spoiler because I think it's in the synopsis. But yeah, the old man passes away, and so Charlie winds up taking in the dog. The dog is in pretty bad shape. She's an old dog, probably doesn't have long to live. But there is a land where Charlie can go to possibly reverse her age. And it is in the old man's shed. The old man's shed has been padlocked, but there is a huge spiral staircase that goes down and leads to this whole other world. So once we get into that other world, it is a awesome ride. It's adventurous. There are skeleton zombies. There are ogres, giants. I mean, it's a fun ride. It's like your classic fairy tale mixed in with some modern things. So it was really good. I love this book. I did not think I was going to like it as much just because I wasn't really in like a fantasy mood. I was more in a horror mood, but there's horror elements in this book, and I don't know. I just liked it. I mean, that's all I can really say is I just loved this book. So I gave it 5 stars. I really like Charlie, and I really love Radar. And I am not the hugest fan of German Shepherds, let me tell you. When you work at a vet office, you know. But I really liked Radar, so. Pallbearers Club! The next book is The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. This book, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this book. On one hand, I did like it. I especially like, let me see if I can show you. Like, I especially liked how this book has the annotations by Mercy, the character that we're introduced in the book. Basically, she found this manuscript, the memoir written by Art Barbara, like sat on like her desk or her front doorstep or something like that. And so she goes through the book reading it and she annotates it. And so you just see all sorts of stuff, like how she crossed out names and all sorts of stuff like that. And she just adds her own annotations. Then at the end of each chapter, she writes her thoughts about the chapter and what really happened. So it's kind of like a he said, she said. He says all these things happened, and then she goes back and say, no, that didn't really happen. You're exaggerating. So I did like that aspect of the book a whole lot. I liked her character a whole lot too. But I don't know, there was just something missing for me. I can't exactly put my finger on it. I really don't know. Like, I guess I wanted more from the book, but I didn't get that. I don't know. It's really hard to describe because it's not a bad book at all. I guess it just wasn't the book for me at that time. It's basically like a coming of age story where the main character thinks that his best friend may be a vampire. And so we get to see that he thinks this. She's like, no, that didn't happen. That's not really happened. I'm not a vampire. You're making this stuff up. So, and it follows him through his teenage years, and then it goes to adulthood. And yeah, we get to see the story of the two of them and how they're intertwined. So again, I didn't hate this. It just wasn't my favorite. I gave it like 3.5 stars. I think my favorite of Paul Tremblay's right now is A Head Full of Ghosts. That book just blew me away. So I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't live up to that expectation. I don't know. I don't know why I'm the way that I am. Next book I read was Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. And this book focuses on a woman who, when she was a child, her father was a serial killer and he killed people in the house. In the basement, and so she got to actually see a couple of these, some of his victims. And so she's coming back to the house because her mother is very sickly and she is dying. And so she wants to fix up the house and get ready to sell it as soon as her mother passes away, and try to reconcile with her mother because they're really estranged. But her mother invites these people, or she labels them parasites, to come and stay in like the old shed of the house, and they get to take like artwork and write stories about the serial killings itself. And so we get to see throughout the story how weird things happen. And so is the house haunted? Is it not? I can't tell you. You need to read it and find out. But it was a really good book. I gave it 4 stars. The twist at the end was super good and I really enjoyed it. So it's a really quick read. I think I read this in like 3-4 days, something like that. Didn't take me long. And yeah, I really liked it. It's really good for fans of The Haunting of Hill House. The next book I read, which I actually listened to on audio just so I could squeeze it in this month, is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. You know the story of The Exorcist. Basically, this mother and her daughter, weird things start happening in the house, and then the daughter begins to act strange and she becomes possessed. So we have the priest come and evaluate her and see if she actually needs an exorcism after the mother has already exhausted all the options of like doctors, psychologists, everything like that. And so it is just a story of exorcism, a test of faith, and all sorts of things. So really good book. I gave it 5 stars. It's pretty close to like the movie. Like the movie followed it pretty well, actually. So I was impressed how close it was. There is more of a detective aspect in this than there was in the movie. Like we see the detective in the movie, but he goes a little more in depth into investigating in this book. So I did like that. I felt like it was more realistic. But again, both the movie and the book are fantastic, and they do follow each other pretty closely, so I can highly recommend it. Yeah, so that is The Exorcist, classic horror. Then the very final book that I read this October is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And let me tell you, I have never read this, obviously, and it's so much different than the movie, which I'm happy of. I like that the book is different. This book kind of focuses more on the humanity of the monster, I guess you could say. Like, the monster actually can talk in this. Like, in the movie, we just see him mumbling and going around and accidentally killing some people on purpose. But in the book, he's more humanized. We see him like studying this family for a long time, and he learns vocabulary from them, not like face-to-face interaction, but he just watches them. And so he learns all sorts of words from them, and he winds up helping them out some without their knowledge. And so, yeah, I mean, this book kind of humanizes the monster, and I like it. I'm surprised. I actually like a really good classic. So, yeah. So I gave this book, I think 4.5 stars. Like, I mean, good classic. You go, classic. Thank you so much for watching my October wrap-up video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you found some new reads. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It means so much to me. And until next time, love you guys.